Okay.
Oh, good.
Excellent.
Okay. So, how would you like me to start, Rev? Do you do your intros or should I just start?
No, it's all you.
Oh, okay. So let me see here if I can. Next fun thing I gotta do is share my screen. Okay. Let's see if I let me share my screen here. Okay. There we go. Because I just did some quick slides, but most of the stuff I'm gonna be using is gonna be more so on the media side of what I've done.
Oh, yes.
So let me get my presentation here. All right. Let's start the slideshow. All right.
Oh,
Can
good.
Yep,
Yes.
we see it.
We're
Okay.
good.
It's funny because I could see the slide, but now I can't see anybody. So let me
Yeah,
know
yeah.
if I go off go off the rails or anything. So hi, good. I guess here is it's still morning for me here. It's 11 o'clock here on the East Coast, and I think you guys are 8 o'clock.
Yep.
Yeah. So thank you for coming out this morning to check out the presentation I will be sharing with you. The title is Connected Interfaith Through Media Events. I am Jacqueline Fuller, but feel free to call me Jackie. Jackie's more my preferred name. And I'm happy to share with you just some of the experiences I've done on the media side, which is pretty much has been my background and my love for media since I was a child. And I've been very fortunate to intertwine my love for media with my calling in the interfaith arena, which has been pretty much have served to help other faith-based groups and interfaith groups do media outreach, which I will take me into the next slide here. Um, Again, I am Jackie Fuller. I am a communications professional. I specialize in working with faith communities in helping them get their media goals out to the public. I do that also personally through my production, which is called Interfaith Connections, which you see there on the logo, and it's called Building Bridges and Closing Gaps. I have been, like most people, was inspired to do interfaith work after 9/11, which is also was a blessing for me because prior to that, when that happened, I was a year out of college and I was the communications intern at the Interfaith Alliance, if you're familiar with that organization. And I said, over the years doing my nonprofit time, I was like, I should really do something with my skills in PR and media to serve the interfaith community. So pretty much what I did with that, I started Interfaith Connections in 2012. I kind of did it like casually, but formally, officially, it was 2012, June of 2012, when I came together and created that production. Now, you may be wondering what the other logo is that has Pup Theology. Pup Theology was an activity or a gathering that one of my colleagues, who was a pastor, he did that. His name is Brian Berghoff, and he's now a member of United Church of Christ. He used to be I think Dutch reformist, and then he became United Church of Christ. So he used to put these activities when he was here in DC and the interfaith community, who was comfortable being around alcohol and going to pubs. That was just kind of a more casual gathering we used to do. With him in meeting up, things of that nature. And then when he moved, that kind of dwindled away. So that logo connected with my current logo, I decided to kind of carry on what he was doing, but more in an interfaith format. And I've been doing those virtually, I guess, yeah, since the pandemic in 2020. But prior to that, we were doing that in 2018. Also about me, I am a freelance writer. I've written articles for the Washington Informer, which is an African American based newspaper here. And the cool thing with that, with my role as a contributing writer, I was the person who had the interfaith experience. So I was able to get the Black American or African American perspective of different groups of religious people or faith-based people who are in like the Baha'i community, the unit people who are in unity, people who are Baptist, things of that nature, to highlight the things they were doing in their communities with the press. So I was able to produce various articles from them, including the annual Unity Walk that is hosted by the Interfaith Council of Metropolitan Washington that takes place each year in September. And I also served as the president of the Religion Communicators Council. I served in that capacity from 2019 to 2021. And I'll give some brief explanation about what the council does later in the presentation. So that's pretty much, I said, interfaith is my jam, interfaith is my life, and I'm always happy to bring the media perspective to our work in this movement. Now, I'll start with Interfaith Connections, and now I'm calling it like building an interfaith empire, because one of the kind of comments people say to me is that I'm the interfaith media mogul. So I have it broken down into these three areas that I'm focusing on now, which is currently the YouTube show, and that's a mix of multi-faith education and entertainment that's available 24/7. Originally, the show was produced at a local public access station, but when the pandemic hit, I was like, it would be I think it would be time for us to start taking this to a larger audience. And of course, like most people, we had to do things virtually through Zoom or any of those type of platforms. So basically, with the show, I just invite people who do interfaith work, or there's like a faith-based connection to their work that's engaged with people of different belief systems. Everything is not tied into you have to belong to a faith. I had people who on my show who were atheists, agnostic, Scientologists. So it's been a variety of people who've come on the show who talked about the things they're doing. And we have people who've been, I think the majority of the people who have been engaged, all connected, or were involved in stopping human trafficking, which I thought was really interesting. We had people who were authors, who musicians. So we are not necessarily, it has to be everything book by book. We have clergy, rabbi, pastors. I finally got my first Amon like a few years ago. That was one interesting thing that took me a long time to get Amon to come on my show. But he came on there and he gave us some variety of perspectives of his tradition. And people seem to really be engaged with that. So in this next chapter, I'm trying to get more of a more non-traditional focus, and individuals that come on the show and share their perspectives and their beliefs. I'm still looking to find now. I got to find a Wiccan to come on my show. I met someone from the heathen community has been on the show. Buddhists are really interesting, and I think it's harder for me to get Buddhists because they're very introverted. So if you know a Buddhist who's comfortable speaking in front of a camera or doing presentations, please let me know. That's been a major search I'm doing right now for that. With podcast, we are in the process of looking at a platform to have the show air that way through audio. I know people have asked about will I be doing a podcast. So yes, that's coming up. Typically, August is my hiatus month for the production because so many people are going on vacations and so forth. So September, a lot of things will be kicking off there. And then another thing I do with this I would say this production or this empire is just focus on local events, because it's like I'm like everything can't just be done in the studio or sitting in my studio in my room at home producing the shows. But I said what I would like to do also is bring together people in person locally and connect. Now I've been doing that as far as in person in the Washington D.C. area, but what I explained with pup theology that was ongoing since the pandemic, we're doing that virtually. So most of that has been done, through Zoom and just connecting with people. And I use the platform Meetup to share events that's going on in the community with the group here in DC that they can stay in touch and find out what's happening and can connect that way. Let's see. Okay. So next, I am going to get in here. I want to share, because I know some people on the call, I think, has an education background. So I want to be able to share some of the perspectives that one of my guests, Vicki Garlick, did with her her work focuses around educating children about the world's religions, and I thought that would be a good video to watch for the group. And then the second one I'll share with you also will be my interview I did with another local interfaith program here in the DC area, where I had an interview talking about how hard it is for people doing faith-based work or interfaith work to get media attention. So I want to share those with you. So let me shift over and we'll start with Vicky's interview.
We don't have any sound.
Can you hear?
No. I think when you share this video, you have to, there's a box you have to click to that does the sound on that too.
Oh, okay, let me find that. Let's see. Let me go back to Zoom. Wow, Zoom is very technical here. Okay, one participant can share. Okay, let's see, advanced sharing options. Does it give me who can share? Okay, I got that there. I don't know why it's giving the mute the audio issue.
Hi, Jacqueline. This is Rebecca. And if you stop your screen share and reshare it, then you'll see the little box.
That's right.
Okay, so I just need to stop the share. Thank you.
And there's a box that says optimize. Do not select that. It's counterintuitive. You want to check it, but it actually creates black boxes over the videos. So I've learned the hard way.
Yeah.
Okay. So I need to see, is this see? Okay, I think I turned my share screen off. But yeah, let me know if you can or can't hear it. Let me just shift back here to the beginning. Can you hear it?
I don't see it yet.
Hold on. Let me go back here. Okay. Share screen. Oh, also share system audio.
That's it.
There you go.
How did I miss that?
It's like, why do they have to even ask?
Why? What is that about?
There we go.
Hello, and welcome to Interfaith Connections. I am your host, Jackie Fuller, and thank you so much for joining us for the first time on our YouTube channel. Now, the young lady you see on the other end is Vicki Garlock. She is the founder of Faith Seeker Kids, and she provides resources for families, educators, and churches that want to teach their congregations or their students about religious literacy. And I am so happy to have her on today's program. Thank you so much, Vicki, for joining us.
Thank you, Jackie. It's great to be here.
Thank you. Great. So can you share with our audience some background information about yourself?
Yeah. So initially, I was actually trained in psychology. I got a PhD with dual specialties in neuroscience and child development. And so I was a psychology professor for over a decade. And then in 2008, when my two kids were much younger, I took a job at Jubilee Community Church here in Asheville, North Carolina. And my official title is Nurture Coordinator and Curriculum Specialist, which is a fancy way of saying that I ran their Sunday school program, and I was also asked to write curriculum for them. And a few years after doing that, I realized that there might be some people who would be interested in some of the resources that we were creating. And so I founded Faith Seeker Kids. And as you pointed out, the mission, the goal of Faith Seeker Kids is to provide families and educators and churches with the tools they need to teach about the other faiths, the other faith traditions from around the world. And the ages I mostly work with are age 3 and 4 up through 8th grade. But I've heard that some of our materials have been used with high schoolers and even adults.
So why do you think it's important for people to have an understanding of the world's belief systems?
Yeah, Well, I think we're seeing a couple of things happen right now. You know, on the one hand, what we're seeing is that cross-faith interactions are happening more and more. Even in small towns in the US and Western Europe, people meet people from other faith traditions all the time, in the supermarket, at schools, at parks. And we also know that a lot of young people are marrying someone from another faith tradition. So interfaith marriage is also on the rise. So that's what's happening on the one hand. On the other hand, we continue to see really tragic events happening in the name of religion. So just within the past year or two, we've had massacres at Islamic mosques, we've had vandalism of Jewish synagogues, massacres at Black Christian churches. So somehow we need to figure out a way to navigate this. And I think those two things are related, right? So as cross-faith interactions go up, for some people that's great, and for other people that promotes a lot of fear. So what we're trying to do is start with kids who really don't have a very hard time learning this stuff, and really try to change that dynamic that's happening in our culture right now.
Have you noticed in your work if it's easier to work with young people in regards to teaching them about the world's religions, or do you get resistance from that? Maybe it's because of maybe sometimes their parents or whoever's in their household doesn't agree with people teaching about different faith traditions, because in, you know, in some traditions it's like my way. I like to say my way or the highway. That's how I describe it. But I know there could be challenges at times where people want to say, hey, I'm not comfortable with you teaching my child A, B, C, or D. So any kind of like resistance or?
Well, I do think that a lot of times I don't see that resistance because it's behind the scenes, right? If people have those views, they tend not to be interested in my products. They tend not to come to our church for our Sunday school program. So I'm not sure I see all the resistance, but from my perspective, this is so easy to do with kids, right? So kids really understand that there are certain human values that are important, right? Being respectful, being honest, living in peace with one another, living in harmony with the earth, connecting to the sacred. And so when we sort of step back and look at the world's faith traditions from that perspective, it's very easy to see what they have in common. And so kids, we also teach through story. So kids are very happy to learn stories from any number of traditions. And I think that the truth of the matter is we tend to find the parents and the caregivers and the educators that are interested in providing these opportunities for their children. The kids are no problem at all. The kids are the easy part.
Okay. Yeah, I was thinking about that too, particularly as children enter their adolescent years and they're, you know, they're exploring and they're also questioning, and they probably will be seeking like resources. How can I learn about a particular faith? Well, let's say, for example, we'll use Christianity. Like I'm around Christians all the time. I go to church all the time. I'm in this environment going to mass or what have you, and I don't get that exposure beyond that. So this would be kind of like a gateway for them to at least, I guess, get an introduction into the world's religions without having to take college classes, you know?
Exactly. So one of the things that people ask me a lot of times is, won't kids be confused, right? So there's not a lot of research out there right now, but the anecdotal evidence actually suggests that when people learn about a variety of faith traditions, if they have one of their own, it actually strengthens their own faith tradition for them. Okay. By the same token, you know, when people say, don't kids get confused, gosh, you know, the notion of God and the sacred is confusing. And so what we're trying to do is provide kids with just the language, a little bit of knowledge, to try to access that which is sacred. At their best, religions help us be our best. And so why wouldn't we want kids to have as many opportunities as possible to get in touch with that part of themselves?
Right, right. So I will actually look, like, for example, with your first publication I'm looking at here, we all have sacred spaces. Can you take me and our audience, like, opening this resource? What shall we expect when we open it? Or
Yeah.
read it?
So this is our first kids book. It's geared for kids age 4 to 10. And it starts out with just a general introduction about how we're all different. We're physically different, but we also have different ideas about how the world works. And then it takes the reader through 7 different traditions: indigenous sites, Hindu mandirs, Buddhist temples, Christian churches, Jewish synagogues, Islamic mosques, and Sikh gurdwaras.
Mhm.
And it spends a little bit of time talking about the way the outside of their worship spaces look. And then it talks a little bit about what you would expect to see on the inside. And some of it, of course, is about the differences, because in many ways, you know, an Islamic mosque and an are different. But it also talks about some of the interesting similarities that you'll see. For example, in the Christian tradition and the Buddhist tradition, there's a certain focus among some practitioners with relics. So not only do big Christian churches have relics, but so do Buddhist stupas. So there's some interesting connections. Also, you might think that Hinduism and Islamic mosques wouldn't have anything in common, but in both of those sacred spaces, you take off your shoes, right?
Mhm.
And in a lot of sacred spaces, like Islamic mosques and Sikh gurdwaras, people cover their heads. So we're trying to give both a sense of the similarities and a sense of the differences, and also some of the range of what you see. So for example, if I asked you to describe a Buddhist temple, it's not very easy to do, because they come in all sorts of shapes and sizes and colors, and outside is different, and inside is different. And so part of it is just to let kids get a sense of, and adults too, the range of the sacred spaces that are out there in the world, and that have been out there in the world for thousands and thousands of years.
Mhm.
So it's been fun, because the early reviews have been really good. We just got a 5-star review from Readers Favorites, which is a professional review organization. So so we have a little silver seal on our cover now, so we're excited about that. So
Yeah, because it sounds, I like how you started about the fact you mentioned that we have physical differences, because in a lot of spiritual spaces they like to say we're all the same, and it's like, no, not exactly, but we know what you're trying to say. I like that you mentioned that. And then the book itself sounds like it's a tour guide, in the sense of, like, you being able to check out these different places, even though you can't physically be there in person to check it out. So I like that component of it, as you were describing it, because I think that can, like, really be helpful. Do you see possible challenges in having this type of, like, education in public schools? Because you start talking about separation of church and state, but could it be seen as maybe learning about world cultures, maybe something in that realm, it could be promoted that way, versus people thinking, oh, it's going to be a separation of church and state issue because she's teaching about religions, and that might not necessarily be the case if you're doing it from an intercultural perspective.
right. So I'm not a freedom of speech scholar, but
Okay.
but it is actually constitutional for teachers to teach about the world religions in schools. What separation of church and state really refers to is not promoting any one single religion over
Okay.
the others.
Gotcha.
So just to start with, this book would be allowed in public schools. However, it is also true that teachers get very nervous because parents get upset, and nowadays they can snap a photo and put it on Facebook, put it on other social media platforms, and create a huge controversy in a very short amount of time. And as you know, it can be very difficult to have a detailed discussion about anything on social media platforms. And so teachers get really worried that if they try to do anything, it's going to sort of blow up in their faces. And so we're really promoting this book as a solid way to teach across the faith traditions it clearly does not promote one religious tradition over another. So we're hoping that schools, school libraries, and public libraries will adopt this book, buy this book, and make it available to whomever might be interested in it. So yeah, that will be a small step in the right direction.
Awesome. Now take us to your next book, Interfaith Made Easy, a Christian education curriculum for kids.
Yeah, so when I was at Jubilee Church, and I'm speaking in past tense, I'm actually still there, but because of COVID-19, we've been closed since mid-March, and so I've actually been laid off for the moment, which is giving me a lot of extra time to write. But at Jubilee Church, I developed hundreds and hundreds of lesson plans, right? So using stories from across the faith traditions and developing crafts and activities. And so that's what I had. And so that's what it made sense for me to start with. So the first unit that was published, so Interfaith Easy is my registered trademark. And the first unit is the peace unit. So it focuses on peace stories from across the traditions. And each lesson plan has at least one craft and at least one activity. And we have 4 volumes. Preschool, kindergarten, lower elementary, upper elementary, and middle school. And so we started by marketing that to progressive type Christian churches who might be interested in adding a little bit of information about other traditions. And so for now it's marketed as a Christian curriculum to progressive type Christian churches.
Cool.
And I actually, the last I heard, it was being used in 7 different denominations.
Oh, wow.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think resources like this, it's very helpful because it gives parents, teachers, and even, like I said, clergy or even community leaders, like something they can use that they can work with people to help them, or just help, like just be a resource for them to understand how they can get individuals to learn about the different faith traditions, kind of like maybe within the comfort of like their environment, and just be able to kind of ask questions and things of that nature that maybe people wouldn't ask in a kind of like, everyday type situation. They'll have the opportunity to just say, hey, I can use this, or I can go to my pastor to ask them about this particular faith and how it, what's the, interconnections with, the similarities with Christianity. Because I think that sometimes like a big concern is, will the stuff I learn, am I learning it properly, correctly? Is this the right type of information that I'm getting about this particular faith? So I think this is like a good resource, particularly for probably like people in the Christian community to really tap into, to use.
Yeah, thank you. Well, there's a whole bunch of interesting things you said in there. So the first thing is there's a reason why I call it Interfaith Made Easy, right? Because these lesson plans are intended to be used by Sunday school teachers without a lot of preparation.
Oh,
So
good.
the idea is that the teachers or families, caregivers learn along with the kids, right? So it doesn't require a lot of advanced training. And we really do it at a kid level. So you don't have to know the ins and outs of the belief system. You just have to be able to sort of read a story and be really open-minded and really open-hearted, because we ask the kids a lot of different questions. What did you think about this story? Did this character act in a peaceful way or a non-peaceful way? And they are open-ended questions. Some of them are content-based, right? So there's technically a right answer based on what happened in the story, but a lot of them are open-ended questions. And so what we really need to find are parents and educators who are willing to let kids explore and who are willing to explore along with the kids.
Right.
And so it really is intended to be very easy for people to do. And in fact, I think I said earlier, it's in a safe environment. And so I've had people adapt the middle school lesson plans to adults. And I've had a number of adults at Jubilee Church say, I wish I were in the Sunday school program. I wish I were young enough to do your lesson plans, which is kind of sweet. So, yeah.
It's my next question, because that's something I even thought about doing in my downtime from the program. I would like to be able to get in the community in some capacity to do more education around the world's religions. Now, I have pub theology that I do, and that's virtual now too. I don't do teaching in that. I'm more kind of like the facilitator. Don't have to be a referee, but I'm kind of like that person that guides like people from different traditions when they're talking as we're answering questions. But I would like to be able to start setting up sessions where people can probably do something similar to what you're doing, that could come in and learn about those different traditions. I think that's really, really, I feel it's necessary when you talk about community. I'm like, this is how you understand your community. You need to know the people and the cultural and religious practices of your community to really have a strong, vibrant, and safe community. I think that's really important from that perspective. And another thing is I'm thinking of your the name of your business, Seeker, because there's so many young people from, I think always college students, when going through the whole coming of age period during that time in your youth, just have like a really core just group of people in that time period of their lives where they are maybe seeking something outside of what they've been exposed to. Can you just share your opinion on that? I'm just curious, like,
Oh, yeah.
in your work in particular, like, has that ever come up in your work about, it's like, oh, I grew up in a Protestant church or a Catholic church, but I'm curious to learn about, like you said, I notice Christians tend to gravitate to Buddhism because there's similarities in that, and I can definitely speak to that going to a unity church where we say in unity, we're still Christian and we're down with Jesus, but you still have a lot of elements they do where it's very Buddhist-like. So I'm just curious from like your perspective and your work, have you seen that kind of like, I'm here, but I'm curious about over here, or I'm looking to just break free from it all and I just want to learn and grow from that, from those perspectives, maybe tapping into each of the faith traditions and their philosophies for my spiritual growth.
Yeah, absolutely. So that was all part of why I chose the name Faith Seeker Kids for my business. So in many ways, faith leaders from each tradition, you have rabbis and you have Buddhist teachers, and ministers, and all of those people are really, to a certain extent, faith keepers. They are experts at how to live into that particular faith tradition, which is great. And that particular faith tradition worked for them, still works for them. But for a lot of people who are sort of sitting in the pews, so to speak, it's a lot to figure out, right? Who and what God is, and how you're going to incorporate the divine into your life. And so I think we have reached a point in time where we need to be able to say, if the faith tradition in which you were raised isn't quite working for you, either the belief system or the rituals, then can we find something that will work for you? And maybe that's taken from another tradition. Sometimes, for example, a lot of young people decided, as you pointed out, to get into Buddhism, right? Oh, I like to meditate. Oh, I like to meditate. Well, it turns out that contemplative prayer has been part of the Christian tradition for hundreds of years. So sometimes beliefs and practices that we think are really different or outside of our assigned faith tradition really aren't as different as we might think they are. So, and as we all know, the numbers of young people who are identifying with a single particular religion, the percentage of those folks is going down, right? So unfortunately, what happens too often is that young people then end up being sort of nothing, right? And I think what this is here to say, what my work says is, you know, there's actually a lot of ways to articulate who and what the divine is about. There's a lot of ways to tap into that. And maybe some of those ways would be interesting to you. Maybe some of those ways would work for you. And so I think that that's why some of our materials that are geared towards middle school kids actually work for young adults who are going through this process themselves.
Okay. And I saw on your website that you mentioned like community service projects. How can you explain about that with the working with your
Well, so one of the things that all religious traditions have in common, you know, a lot of people know that the golden rule appears in every different religious tradition, but there are a whole bunch of other things that appear in most religious traditions as well, right? Being honest, being respectful, the notion of hospitality, simply just being kind. And one of the things that shows up is taking care of those in need, right? And so community service is one of the ways that you, just by doing community service, you are doing something that happens in all faith traditions. And so in the curriculum, we definitely include community service ideas. And some of them are just, you know, general community service ideas, and some of them go well with certain lesson plans. And so it's not, people always say, oh, kids should do community service. But what we found in our program is it's not always so easy to find community service opportunities for 6-year-olds. So they can do some things for sure. But we've actually spent many years identifying and developing community service opportunities for young children. And so I wanted to be able to share that as well with people.
Cool. Nice. Nice. Do you have I'm also curious, do you have a vision to see where Faith Seeker kids will be going in the next 5-10 years? The whole process of its evolution?
Yeah, I have lots and lots of ideas. So I'm hoping I have more curriculum units that I could publish. So I published the peace unit. We also have compassion, embracing the darkness, which looks at fear and pride and greed. Almost all religious traditions deal with those, what we normally think of as negative emotions. And so instead, what we try to do is treat, everyone has those emotions, right? You can't get rid of them. So how do we live with those emotions? We also have, there's creation stories from all over the world. So there's other curriculum units that we could publish. And I'm hoping that the Sacred Spaces book will be the first in a series. So we're also looking at, we all eat festive foods, we all read special books, we all love lights. And so there are several other small books like that. My current project is we are taking the peace stories from the curriculum and we are putting them together in a single bedtime storybook for kids. It's going to be called Embracing Peace. Stories from the world's faith traditions. And so I'm working with illustrators right now. We're getting illustrations for all the stories, and that should be out hopefully in early 2021.
Nice. Nice. Well, congratulations.
So we'll just keep going. We'll just keep doing our thing and trying to convince people that this is important work.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Now, in the times where you have time to yourself, what do you do for fun? You know, what do you enjoy doing outside of your interfaith work?
Right.
Interfaith work is your life. Unless you're like me, your interfaith work is your life.
So honestly, one of the most fun things I do is I get to be a mom to my 2 great kids. So my son is 14, so he's currently doing virtual high school. My daughter is 20, so she moved out of the house. And so, of course, they don't need the same kind of parenting that they used to need. But my kids are great, right? They're smart and they're funny and they're interesting young people, and I learn a ton from them. And so that's obviously a big part of what I do in my spare time. But I've also been working out a lot, especially since we're all stuck at home, right? So I've been doing a lot of online yoga classes. And I also do Taekwondo. I started Taekwondo with my son, and then he quit doing it, and I just sort of kept doing it. So my dojang is doing online classes as well. So at the very least, I'm trying to sort of stay fit during these crazy times.
Well, it's good you have a consistent regimen. I'm still working on something like to do consistently.
Yeah, I try to be consistent. So.
Yeah, mine
Always room
is
for
now like 3 days a
improvement, right?
week.
Yeah, right.
And before we go, can you let our audience know how they can purchase your books and how can they stay in touch with you?
Yeah, thank you. So We All Have Sacred Spaces came out on Amazon, so that's the easiest way to purchase that. The 4 volumes of the Peace Unit of the curriculum, Interfaith Made Easy, those are sold through my publisher, possibilitiespublishing.com/shop. And so we have those available in both print editions and downloadable. And then I do all the regular social media stuff. So I'm on Facebook, I'm on Twitter, I'm on Instagram as Faith Seeker Kids. I also curate here in Asheville, the Asheville Interfaith Facebook group, which is a public group. So that has almost 300 members now. And across all those platforms, I do slightly different things, but basically the idea is to let people know when it's a holy day in one of the major world traditions. I post crafts, I post activities, I post kids' book ideas. If right now a lot of interfaith groups are doing things online, Creation Communities has an interfaith service every Sunday night. United Religions Initiative is doing various programming, Religions for Peace. And so I try to post links to those online either seminars or rituals or other opportunities. So yeah, I love to stay in touch with people. I love to hear what works and what one of the things I found is that educators are incredibly creative. So they can do things with these books and with the curriculum that I never would have anticipated. So it's always fun to hear how people are actually using these resources because people come up with all kinds of interesting ways to do that.
Okay, cool. Thank you. Yeah, this is much appreciative. I'm sure the audience will definitely appreciate the information that you have available for them to use. So yeah, thank you so much for that.
Thank you so much for having me. It was great.
Oh, sure. You're welcome. And thank you, our Interfaith Connections audience, for joining us today. Make sure that you subscribe to our channel and that you like this video, and definitely get in touch with Vicki with her products. It's very important to know this stuff, particularly in this day and age. And I think religious literacy is the key to a lot of things that we're trying to strive for, towards peace and understanding in our world.
Yeah. All right. Was everyone able to see that?
Yes,
It's like on my end, Zoom shut everything down. I was like, I hope they can see, hope they can hear and see everything. So that was a perspective of what I do in regards to my interviewing guests when they come on the program. I mean, you can also probably visualize what is that like as a reporter when I'm getting asking questions for people in regards to doing their work. So for the show itself, I'm still looking for new guests. I would like to get people who are spiritual but not religious. I know that might be a bit more, probably more digging I have to do there. But if anyone in this audience who would like to be on the show, feel free to let me know. And before I go to what I want to do also is do something brief. When I was interviewed on a radio show, so to show the perspective of me doing the interviewing versus someone interviewing me. But I wanted to make sure people, if you may have any questions before I switch over to that particular presentation. Any questions? No.
I totally enjoyed it. I mean, we know Vicki Garlock, and she's presented for the NAIN conference in 2017. But at other times, and I think she's got great books and everything. So it was really a pleasure to have you interview her. I totally enjoyed that. Thank you. And in fact, I wrote down the books because we've got a 3.5, almost 4-year-old. I'm going to get them.
Oh, great. Yeah.
Was this, did I hear that it was a 2021 podcast? So it's
yeah, because I was like,
has other books now too.
Yeah, she has more. I know she has. I think she has some awards too.
Got her email, so I can email her about that. But thank you. I'm really happy to see that. Also in the chat, I put Basu Bahu's name. He's a Buddhist monk, and I'm sure he'd be happy to be on your podcast.
Oh, yes.
He's a good friend of ours, Jacqueline. So,
and he's the new president of the North American Interfaith Network organization.
Oh, yeah.
He's young. He's brilliant. He's the sweetest thing in the world. So, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that sounds like definitely somebody I need to get in touch with. Awesome. Thank you. I appreciate that. Cool. Okay. All right. So let me switch over here to when I did an interview, which is always weird. I said, you want to interview me? So I'm gonna try to do a clip from it. It's 60 minutes. We don't need to listen to 60 minutes, but I wanted to get the part in the interview where he talks about the gentleman, Jack Gordon. He talks about the challenges of getting media coverage as for those who are in the faith-based community or doing interfaith work. So let me find that screen. So I have it queued up. Okay. Let me go back here to sharing my screen. Make sure all the good stuff is turned on here. Okay.
We can't hear you, Jacqueline. You're muted.
Let me stop the share so I can talk. I got to get used to that. So I was just mentioning Jack's podcast. He uses SoundCloud, but faith communities also use another service for their podcast called Podbeans. So if you're interested in doing a podcast production, make sure you check like those, maybe do the comparison between those and find out which one will work for your needs. So that's what's pretty much what I was saying. Sorry about that. Now I'll go back. Go back to the share screen. Okay, there and there. Let's see. Let's see something here.
Jackie, if you're sharing something, we're not seeing it.
Uh-oh, hold up. Thank you. Let me go back. Okay, let's see. Let me do this again. Okay, let me try to share again. Okay.
There's the share.
There's the share. Okay. Let's see. Hopefully you can hear.
Jackie, it's Rebecca
There we
again.
go.
We see it, but we're not hearing it.
Oh,
If you
goodness.
stop, if I'm going to show you, and everybody can learn this because Zoom is always changing. So bless you. So if you click share, just the word share in Zoom, and then what will happen is there'll be a box that opens and there'll be 3 different tabs. On the 3rd tab, it's called advanced. There is one that says share computer sound, and then we'll hear the sound and not see anything. And then it should come through fine. So click share.
Okay.
And then go to that 3rd tab that I think says advanced.
Yeah.
And then it says computer audio.
Right. I see that.
And click that and then click share. And then whatever you play, the audio will come through. It should do.
Hopefully. Concept like I learned in journalism 101, if it bleeds, it leads.
Multifaceted, but really it's recognizing that people of faith have institutions. So we do not organize individuals, we organize institutions. And the reason we do that is there's more power there, right? People are already organized and already, in many ways, have values of connecting with others and working towards social change. So the interfaith component is we gather our clergy together monthly, have reflections from each of our different traditions. You know, recently we had Masjid Muhammad, who's been a member for a long time, and Imam Sharif shared something from his tradition on Malcolm X. And, you know, getting to have those conversations, but most importantly, it's developing relationships of action. And being able to say we may not agree theologically on things, but we can all agree that people do not need to be homeless on our street and people do not need to be displaced from the city.
Mm-hmm. My other guest this morning, Jackie Fuller, in addition to hosting her own interfaith talk show, is also a reporter with the Washington Informer and national vice president with the Religion Communicators Council. So I'm curious, Jackie, a constant challenge that interfaith groups seem to face is that while we hear about religious conflict in the news often, we rarely hear about these cooperative efforts, some of the things that Allison is talking about. And in the spaces that you find yourself with other religion-focused media professionals, do you find that this holds true? Is this a trend? Why is it so hard to get out stories about people working together?
Well, I guess first thing is the whole journalism concept, like I learned in journalism 101, if it bleeds, it leads, and that still holds true. So that's why in most cases you will see about unfortunately, the negative news that's put out there. One good thing I do like about the Washington Informer is that it does encourage positive stories to that's covered in the community, which also was one of the reasons that attracted me into the opportunity to be a contributing writer with them, because I said this was a good opportunity to not only bring my knowledge and skills, but I can tell the story from the perspectives that I've experienced not only here in the local community, but in other spaces around the country. And I think it has been very helpful so far to highlight that, which I was at the Unity Walk on Sunday, and I'm working on a story about that now. And I have been covering other areas in the community where the faith community has been engaged in doing great work, especially around mental health and HIV awareness. So I always feel that you have to look for those type of stories. And with the power of the pen, or now our computers, we should also write to our editors and let them know you want to see that type of coverage.
Great. Allison, do you find that it's a struggle to get the word out about the Washington Interfaith Network's efforts, or is it different because the conversation is led sort of by, again, these social issues that are already in the news? housing and jobs and so forth?
That's a great question. I feel like, Jackie, I've never heard that, so that's interesting. If it bleeds, leads. Yeah, and a lot of time the positive work is not, people want to see a controversy. And so the positive work around the housing that has been built around, for example, the Temple Courts campaign that we've been working on is working with residents who have been displaced 10 years ago in Northwest 1 area of DC. And we just got the agreement for, 518 affordable units built on an empty parking lot across from NPR. It was covered in one small article, but it's not something that, it's a win, it's a victory. It's been 10 years since residents have been waiting to get back who've organized in that community alongside of WIN and other institutions in the neighborhood, so Holy Redeemer and Mount Lebanon Baptist. And it's hard. It is hard to get that covered sometimes. But we do have good relationships with media, and when there are things that we really need to get out around transit, for example, we have been able to. But it's definitely easier within our congregations to share the word. But beyond that, it definitely takes a lot of effort, and strategic work to do that.
Ironic, since NPR is right there. Hopefully they've been giving you some coverage because they could look right out the window and see that effort happening right across the street. Jackie, you said that you were at the Unity Walk this weekend. Do you have any reflections maybe you can share with the listeners who aren't familiar with that event, what that event is and
Sure.
what your impressions
I
are?
said, as a veteran being involved in, now on both sides, being a volunteer and being a reporter, it's an annual event that happens on Embassy Road, which is on Massachusetts Avenue Northwest. And you have the opportunity to visit houses of worship from the different world's religions. It usually starts in the afternoon with the opening ceremony at the Washington Hebrew congregation to get everybody pumped up for the walk. And you have the opportunity to visit like different faith communities, learn about their traditions, the cultures, the food. It's really a good opportunity. And then it goes down to the Islamic Center, where they usually have like the performances. Mosaic Harmony was there, gave a very awesome show with the gospel music. So it's been around for, this was the 13th annual of the walk. So it's been around for a while, and it's pretty much a tradition that started from the 9/11 event as a way to counter a lot of the, I guess, the prejudices that has taken place since that time with religious minorities, particularly the Islamic community.
And did you feel like there was any special things that you experienced this year that you'd like to share? Any highlights?
Well, the interesting thing was the Unity bike. I mean, being a veteran, so you
Okay,
kind of
what is a
seen it all.
Unity bike?
They had a setup. I think it was about maybe 6-7 people on this like red bike, and they pedal it down to like the different houses of worship where they were scheduled to be, where people just sat in the bike, and they had these different like interfaith dialogue conversations.
Okay.
So it was just something that was different this year that stood out, which I thought was really cool.
Neat. So did you get to ride the bike yourself?
I did not. I took pictures because I was just running around and wanted to make sure I got coverage and getting perspectives from the attendees that were at the event. But I did stop by and just like, can I get some shots, and just kind of just dashed on. But I thought that was another good opportunity to do that, something just different.
Yeah. So it sounds like we've got this balance of sometimes we have these annual events which are really celebratory. And then throughout the year, hopefully these groups are also coming together and rolling up their sleeves and doing the hard work, like Allison's talking about, making that difference in the community on a local level.
Yeah.
This is Interfaith-ish, our bi-weekly show on WOWD 94.3 FM, where we discuss the common ground and differences between our traditions. I'm your host, Jack Gordon, and I'm joined today by my guest, Ms.
Okay, I'm back. Any thoughts? Maybe on the other side. Yeah, it was really interesting. Being the interviewee versus the interviewer.
Yeah, I'm going to speak from Interfaith Awareness Week. We've been doing this for 8 years, and each year becomes more and yet at the same time less difficult, because we have new people that want to be part of it, and then we have older groups that in the greatest problem we've had is we were having a group that was starting off on Sunday from Bangladesh. And a week before, they let us know that because of the wars and everything else, all the craziness going on, they shut down all the technology.
Dang. Wow. Yeah.
So there's outer forces that are causing things to happen. And yet we have people like, well, Reverend Becky is on the line. And thank you for all your technical help,
Yeah.
Rebecca. And other people that have helped when the technical issue arose in previous sessions over the last 2 days. And so everyone's helping everybody, but they've got to know that they exist. And that comes from your work, Jackie, the media. How do we let everybody in the world know that people are different and they're the same? You know, I can write more and more books, but where are people getting the information?
Right. Oh, I see someone's hand. Rebecca, Reverend Rebecca.
Well, this was really wonderful. I would love to hear that whole interview that you played the excerpt from. It is really interesting. And sorry?
Yeah, sure. I can send the link.
Yeah, that the whole thing and your previous interview. Like I want to subscribe and I want to watch your programs. They're really. I am an interfaith minister, and I've been doing what I call mixed media production since the pandemic. And by mixed media, I use Zoom, the sacred Zoom technology, to amplify the voices of people that we don't hear from in what I called old story media. And one of the biggest challenges that we have found as event producers, bringing people, thousands of people together around the world, across time zones, across Zoom rooms, is that every press release we've ever sent out, they're not interested because we're not monetizing what we're doing. I mean, we need money in order to do what we're doing, but we're not waiting until we have an advertising budget or a money budget. Most of us are volunteers to amplify this, like I said, the stories of people, of BIPOC people. I work primarily, well, I work with an incredible diversity of people, a diversity of religions. And it's like, I was thinking as you were talking earlier, what happens when the news becomes the news? and like I call what I'm part of, and even World Interfaith Awareness Week, this is the new media. And it's rising. This is powered by the people, for the people. We honor country lines, but we are breaking through borders. You know, we honor people's home bases, and we celebrate the diversity of us. And so I'm really excited to hear all the things that you were sharing about Unity Church. I'm with a Unitarian Universalist church, although I'm not that particular type of minister. I'm interfaith. So I'm just lit up by this conversation, and really grateful we're doing it together. You know, I'm excited for the day that I get a call from a media person and they say, hey, what have you been doing with thousands of people in Zoom since the pandemic? What is going on? Because I really feel like World Unity Week, you may have heard of, Peace Week, they say, Dr. King said, you know, until those who love peace get as organized as those who love war, you know, we won't have peace on earth yet, but we are rising, we are organized. We're not waiting for coverage, but we're grateful when we get any. And so thank you. I will pass the sharing feather back to you. I'm excited.
That's good feedback, which that reminds me, I'm going to have on the rest of my slides. I'm just going to run through them quick because I see it's after 12 now. That could probably also help with the work you're doing. So I'm going to, jump back here. Okay, let me see if I can remember this whole process again. Well, I don't know. Let me see. I don't know. Can I was trying to remember how I did this earlier because I want you to see some of the other things I'm doing here. And hopefully you can hear me. Okay, let me see. Let's see. Share screen. I'm trying to see how can I share the screen so I can go back. You can see the presentation. But just again, let me know if you can hear me when I pull it up.
You somehow got muted.
Okay. Let me try this.
Maybe it's the sound. There we go. We hear you now.
Yeah. Can you hear me now? Okay, perfect. All right. So let's go to the resources since that came up. Okay, let's see. Okay. Now, since we were talking about promoting our work, I shall be doing a shameless plug here. So I know sometimes people have asked me, how can I get connected to resources to promote our faith-based work? Or how can I connect with like-minded people supporting interfaith engagement? I, being the past vice president and national president of the Religion Communities Council, I tell people that is my go-to place, particularly because we are an interfaith association of professionals and we've been around since 1920. So we know what we're doing when it comes to this type of work. So I would recommend going to the Religion Communicators Council, and we have a plethora of resources that you can use to help with your media outreach, whether you're doing PR, marketing, web, podcasting, you want to know how to talk to the press. That is the organization to go to. Now, as far as maybe connecting with other interfaith groups, I usually tell people to check locally and see if you could, like here in DC, we have the Interfaith Council of Metropolitan Washington. But I know in California, there's I think in Southern California, you have an active group that I'm aware of. And I know in Detroit, they also have an active interfaith organization. I'm on their mailing list and they send out a lot of different emails, things like that. So there's always something going on. I also recommend when you want to get the word out, in addition to reaching to the press, make sure you reach out to your community. There's a lot of community calendars. One popular service I know people use is patch.com. So if you have a patch network in your community, they have event calendars. So you could post things on patch there as well. Sometimes local TV stations, they have community calendars. You can post that too. But also if you're doing, like I said, if you probably want to reach out to press and you have an event that's at least 4 weeks before the actual event, if you get a lot of your planning and your media tools ready, reach out to those reporters early so they can get you in their calendar, because that typically is a big help if you doing that. Because in a lot of cases, faith-based stuff that we do or interfaith work that we do, it's not breaking news. They're more like feature stories, particularly if it's positive. Now, unfortunately, if it's a crisis, you may need some crisis communications information, and I would recommend going to the Religion Communicators Council for that. We do have information for crisis, but in most cases, you're probably going to be a feature story with the reporters you speak to. So it's good to get that out in advance. Let me switch here. Okay. And also I want to explain the events, because I don't always want to be in front of a camera. I don't always want to be in the studio. I want to actually sometimes just connect with the community. And I think that's a very good way to build up interfaith engagement, make those connections, close those gaps, build those bridges. So one thing I know I mentioned earlier about doing pub theology, and we are doing that pretty much right now virtual. Seems like virtual is work because we can get people from anywhere, everywhere. And there is a network for that. So for those of you who may be interested in doing pub theology, the website is there at pubtheology.org. And I guess it's pretty casual. Just come up with a set of questions. The pubtheology.org website has a lot of resources as well. And I say that's more for informal people who you don't have to drink. That's not a mandate. I don't want people to think, oh, I don't drink and I can't go. I don't turn away anybody when they come to my events, and particularly it's interfaith. I know some people may wonder, they said, Jackie, has Muslims been to these events? Yes, they have. Has Hindu people been to these events? Yes, they have. They have. They don't drink. And I think sometimes people get concerned about, will people get drunk and get in arguments? I said, no, most people are even people who drink maybe one glass of beer or a glass of wine, it's pretty conservative. I noticed that. I said, now the people who drink the water, sometimes they'll get in those disagreements. I said, no, I said, the people, the back and forth, the disagreements, or they want to like kind of, what do you think of this? But what about this and this and that and the other? And we just look and say, what did they drink? They said, Jackie, they had water. So now I tell people, don't necessarily think when, these events, you'll be surprised. But I feel like a lot of people like this concept because they're not coming into particularly a house of worship. It's more informal and laid back. And then you get a chance to kind of meet people more in a chill kind of like format where people can be who they are. Now, I am working on coming up with events that do not have alcohol around so I can get the people who don't drink into those spaces. One thing I'm working on coming up soon will be the speed dialogue. So it will be a speed dating format with questions where people can ask each other about their beliefs, culture, to get to know each other that way. So I don't know, for those of you who are not familiar with the speed dating format, at these events, it's usually like people come together and you have this time, you're on a time limit, maybe on average 4 or 5 minutes, and you get a list of questions and you have to ask that person those questions within that 5 minutes. And then when a bell rings, you move on to the next seat to talk to the next person. And usually, let me change that a bit with the seat movements. Maybe one side of people don't move, but the other side do. So from the speed dating events that I've observed, women usually sit down and the men move. So when we do the speed dialogues, I want to set it up where one side of people will sit down and then there'll be another side that gets up. So that's something I'm looking to do coming this fall as an activity here in DC to get people together. Because I said, more people are like, can we meet in person? Can we meet in person? And I was like, I said, the biggest thing I can do right now is find a location that can accommodate probably at least up to maybe they have like 30 people. I think I'm gonna work with 30. I could do probably a max of 50, but I want to start off with 30 first and see how that goes. Now here, what you see is on the left is something I've kind of used over the years to do it virtually, so people can, join Pub Theology. If you see it on the left, you can join it from your work. You can join it from your home. If you have a group of friends or family that want to sit on the sessions, you can do it that way. And then what you see on the right is the in-person session. And I like that we get a diversity of people that show up. The guy who I have my arm around, he's the owner of the pub and he lets us use that space free of charge. So that was pretty cool. That was before the pandemic. So now we're trying to rebuild, and the people here were pretty much our regulars, but I said with the pandemic, people have moved away, some people have passed on. So now to do the in-person events again, I will have to rebuild that from scratch. Hopefully we can still use the same location. I don't think that'd be an issue, but it was a really cool like gathering to get people together to eat and just talk about all things religion and faith and current events. So it was really cool. And of course, in closing, minus I forgot to take that piece out there. But in closing, I mean, if you have any other questions, emails, feel free to reach out. And I should actually put those links in the box. But pretty much that's it of the things that I've been working on lately with Interfaith Connections as we rebuild. So thank you. With 15 minutes to go. So hopefully if you have any additional questions, let me know. Or you can ask now. We have 15 minutes, or any thoughts, ideas, something I should do, something I shouldn't be doing, something I can do. Will I be traveling around? I would like to do a world tour. That's my 5-10 year plan. I want to go around the world and visit different countries that are involved in interfaith work and learn from the perspective of those countries. Yes, Joseph.
If somebody were interested, would you be willing to franchise your Pub Theology? In other words, if somebody else from a different city wanted to do something similar, would you have any objections to that?
I wouldn't have any objections. I would definitely recommend, I'm gonna put the first step I would recommend them to do, like I did, is go to pubtheology.org. I'm gonna put that link in there.
If I can, I just put a note in the chat there. .org doesn't work anymore. It's actually .com now.
Oh, he moved up.
That's right. Maybe it means community. I don't know.
Okay. Yeah, because I remember I was like, of course, that was years ago. I was like, oh, he's using org. Okay.
You know, there's really no reason why we can't have that in every city.
Yeah.
You know, Pub Theology San Diego, Pub Theology Seattle. And, you know, if you can do McDonald's hamburgers, you can certainly do interfaith.
Yeah. Yeah, that seems to be pretty popular. So it's like, it's interesting, again, going back to like dating and relationships. Now I have, you know, women would say to me, I want a man that goes to church. I said, well, how would you feel about him going to a pub, you know, like a pub theology where, you know, he can be maybe in a setting that's more reflective, maybe kind of casual things that maybe guys are into. Would you be interested in dealing with someone who he may not want to go to church and sit in the pews, but he has his own variation of worship or spiritual practice. Some women were open to it and some weren't. So I was like, that's interesting. Because they were saying, I can't find a guy. I can't find a guy. I said, well, the guy might not be where you may think he would be. So, you know, I tell people to be open to it, those experiences. Yeah.
I also like the idea of the speed dialogues.
I do too.
One of the other things that the library has done is to have a day of human books. And it's the idea is that somebody who's got an interesting personal story could you know, you'd have a number of people, and you know, 6 or 7 people who would be willing to tell their story, and then people who are interested would go from table to table to talk to the person about their story. So the person who's telling their story might repeat their story about 5 or 6 times during the course of a day, but you'd have like maybe 15-20 minutes or something like that to sort of dialogue with the person about their history. Well, I think you could do the same kind of thing with different uh, people of faith, right? To tell their personal faith journey, or to tell something about their particular faith, and just have people who'd be interested come and say, well, here's Charlie. He's a Buddhist. He wasn't always a Buddhist, but maybe you'd like to find out about Charlie and how he became a Buddhist and what his story is, and do that sort of thing, and then go around to the different tables and have sort of a human book experience, which is kind of like the speed dating, but maybe a little bit more protracted, so people would have a little bit more chance to talk about their faith and their story.
Okay, cool.
I love that. I wrote that down as something to bring up to point. As an event, I think that would be just amazing. So, yeah. Thank you, Jacqueline. Jacqueline, this is great. I totally enjoyed it. I loved all the interviews and whatnot. So, totally appreciate what you're doing.
Oh yeah, you're welcome. I'm also thinking about how can I utilize this. Does this look familiar?
Oh,
I want to figure out how to, you know, with people who want to learn about the different traditions, we can do like, you know, I think it's like weekly rundown, maybe do like something each week around this topics that are covered in here. So another plug for you who those who may not know, written by a certain Nicole.
Jackie, do you also have the workbook?
I do have the workbook. Yeah, I have that here as well.
Because we're going to use that workbook as the closing presentation.
Oh, cool.
At the end of this week.
Okay.
And to show that you can teach interfaith by bringing in people from different faiths and allowing them to explore exactly what Joseph was talking about. Like, what do you believe about? And the workbook has 40 topics. So what do you believe about love? You're a sick. What do you believe about violence? You're a whatever. And putting it into sessions where people can identify what their beliefs are and how similar and different the others are.
Yeah. Yeah, I was pretty excited when I saw it the first time.
Thank you for the plug.
You're welcome. Any other questions you may have? Well, we still got about maybe a few more minutes. Other than that, I'm pretty good. Good to go. Thank you so much for the opportunity to be a part of Interfaith Awareness Week. It's always an honor to share my work with you and your audience. Appreciate everything you've been doing with this. It's very inspirational. So I'm very honored to be here.
Well,
Thank you, Jacqueline.
the session, since you recorded it, I'll send you a note next week saying, can you turn it into a YouTube? And then I'll put it on the archives for World Interfaith Network. And we now have about 50 presentations from over the past years that people can come to and learn about the history of interfaith, and then particular subjects like the one we've been talking about today.
Okay. Awesome. Yeah, I can get all that to you.
You're terrific.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you, Jacqueline.
And your wife. Thank you, everyone, for joining today. I appreciate it. I know it was early on your side of the world.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. And have a good weekend. Take care.
You too.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.